Before I go on, maybe it's important just to do a recapitulation, just to review it again, so that we know what we're talking about. The Diamond Sutra is a profound, very profound sutra, very abstruse in its philosophy. So it's important that every time when we finish a few chapters, we review it again. It seems to be very simple, but it shows us that when the Sangha members went for alms around begging for food, and why did they beg for food and not cooking their own food? We already explained that. And why do they go through all these routines of washing the bowls and sitting down and meditate and then ask the questions? It's all mindfulness. It's the mind. They're all very being mindful of all the actions. Now, almost every chapter gives us a lot of room for review, for thinking about why. Being mindful, because our eyes, all our senses, the six gunas, the six senses, our eyes, our nose, our ear, our tongue, nose, all the senses correspond to the few of the senses, the six gunas. These six gunas, when we interact with them, we create a lot of mental defilements. We create a consciousness. And if you're always mindful of it, out of this creation, out of these senses contacting the external objects, you won't create mental defilements in your mind. So you always have to be very mindful. And here in the first chapter, it seems simple, but then, they're very mindful. Are we mindful? It's because we're not mindful, we perform bad actions, bad deeds. So that's the first chapter. The second chapter, Subhuti asks a question. The question is like this: World Honor One, for those virtuous men and women trying to develop the supreme enlightenment mind, how should their minds abide? How should they control their thoughts? That's a very important question. The whole sutra revolves around these questions. Now, virtuous men and women, virtues, very important. These are the men and women who always follow and conform to the precepts, who are not doing bad deeds. Even virtuous men and women who is always following precepts, the Vinaya, and not doing bad deeds, they already are cultivating good deeds, but they still have to learn how to control their mind. Not to say the unvirtuous ones. The unvirtuous ones are the ignorant ones. Of course, they have to learn to be virtuous first. So virtuous women, these are people who practice, people who follow the Vinaya, the precepts, doing good deeds. And they want to know how to develop this mind. When thoughts come, when bad thoughts come to dominate their mind, how do they make sure that they won't be carried away by these thoughts? How do they control their thoughts? That's chapter 2. That's the most important question. So if anybody asks you, what's the most important question? That's the first question to ask. This is about the mind. So the study of Buddhism is about the mind. Chapter 3, the Buddha said to Subhuti, all bodhisattvas, mahasattvas should subdue their minds as follow. So that opens the answer. Bodhisattvas must liberate all sentient beings from suffering. Although immeasurable number of living beings are thus led to nirvana, or the extinction of reincarnation, yet the truth is that not a living being has been liberated. Now this sentence looks contradictory. How come you liberate, as a bodhisattva, you help, you be compassionate and liberate all sentient beings, but in your mind, you don't think that I am the liberator. You are being liberated. So you don't have that ego in you. Unconditional liberation. So Yet the truth is that not a living being has been liberated, because that in your mind, you don't have that ego. So you won't say, I am the Lord, I'm the controller, and you're the one being controlled. You're the follower, I'm the leader. If you do that, there's already an egoistic feeling. So that's the reason why that's the first part of the answer. And then, of course, why? Why is it like that? Why beings are liberated and not a single being is being liberated? If a bodhisattva still has the false notion of an ego, a personality, a being, a life, he is not a bodhisattva. Now that, you have to know this these fallacious ones, wrong, it's wrong, the fourfold notion. The four things is ego, personality, beings, and life. Now, every one of these has a lot of deep meaning in each one of these. What is ego? Ego, to put it very simply, because I'm not going to explain it in detail again, it's just to remind you. Ego. I. You always think of I. We all live in our ego prison, and we always feel very comfortable with it, very egoistic with it, and that's your comfort zone. But this is a dangerous zone, because your ego, we are egoistic. The I, ego is the I, the subject, or the giver, or in the Buddhist term is the five skandhas. Our ego, we as the person, the entity as the person, is made up of the five skandhas, or the five aggregates. What are we made up of? What is a person, we, I, make up of? Matter, which is the body, right? Matter, flesh and blood. Other than the flesh and blood, we have the spiritual part. That is matter, right? Perception, conception, volition, and consciousness. So that's the mind. So we are made up of the body and mind. We thought this is my body. This is my mind. So that's your ego. That's our ego. Sentient beings attach to the notion of ego and the five skandhas. The ego is the subject. You think you're the subject, the individual, the I. But the ego is the troublemaker. All attachments come from it. The ego. Now, arahats already egoless, no self, without a self. So ego, if arahat's ego is completely eliminated, that's why he enters into nirvana, complete understanding. So ego, I'm not going to explain any further, but this fourfold notion of personality, of ego, personality, being, and life is very important. That's ego. The second is personality. What's the meaning of personality? Other than I, there are also the you, the them, the they, the object, and the opposite of I, the counterparts that you have been interacting. And every person has that ego too. I have that ego, you have that ego. Personality. But you mix with them because you are egoistic, I am egoistic. So this fourfold notion explains time and space. Ego, personality, and being, space. All those we interact. We attach to all of them. Beings also include wealth, reputation, money, luxuries. You attach to your material wants and all that. So those are the things we attach to. Ego, personality, and beings. And how about life? The last, the fourfold, right? The last fold. Life is continuity, time. Life means the time. So ego, persons means space, because we're attached to the ego, person, and things. You cling to the false notion of continuation of life. You think everything is permanent. We assume that things always stay the same. We attach to them. So, the bodhisattvas are free from this, free from ego, personality, beings, and life, free from time and space. It's beyond that. So that's chapter 3. Chapter 4. Now, chapter 4, the Buddha gave example to clarify what he meant by eliminating your ego. And he used the 6 prajna paramitas. Remember the 6 prajna paramitas of the practice that the bodhisattvas are always following. charity, morality, endurance, diligence, meditation, and prajna. Prajna means wisdom, of course. It's the highest wisdom. Buddha said, when a bodhisattva practices generosity, his mind should not abide anywhere. That is to say, when making offering, without a mind abiding in form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and all things. This is form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and inclusive all things, the 6 things. These are the 6 gunas, the 6 fields of the senses. We attach to all of them. When our eyes sees, for example, when a man sees a beautiful woman, or when a woman sees a handsome man, all of a sudden, this eyesight would create that desire, maybe, in his or her mind. And because of this follow and volitional actions will follow. So, eyes correspond to form, ears correspond to sound, taste, tongue, nose corresponds to smell, tongue corresponds to taste, and body corresponds to touch. But every part of the body corresponds to tactile objects. And of course, our mind would correspond and interact with all things. We also create our own images in our mind. So, that's what we attach to. Our mind should not abide in these 6 fields of senses. For example, sound. Somebody criticizes you and yell at you and all that, you attach to it, then you get yourself abide in that criticism, and you get mad, you get jealous. So you don't, bodhisattvas would not attach to the 6 gunas, G-U-N-A-S, or the 6 fields of the senses. But it does not mean that they close their eyes and shut their ears, they still interact, but he won't attach. He won't discriminate. He free himself from attachments, but he still corresponds, the senses still corresponds to the world. Now chapter 3 concerns about the liberator and the ones being liberated, or the giver, the recipient. Bodhisattvas should give liberation without the attachment to the notion of ego, personality, beings, and life. But chapter 4 deals with the gift, what is being given. And is there any attachment to what is being given? In here, the Buddha uses charity as an example out of the 6 paramitas, as it is easier to understand and it is the foremost and the easiest to practice. This is also to avoid the verbosity of repeating every paramita. This is aimed at simplicity. So the Buddha warns against attachment to 3 things: the giver, the beneficiary, and the act of giving. So when you give, you don't attach to say, I give. I am doing good merits. You are the one who benefit from it. And this is the gift I give. So you attach to all this in the process of giving. But a bodhisattva gives with no condition, no attachment, no notion of the giver, beneficiary, and the act of giving. Oh, I donate $1 million to these organizations. My name will be on the newspaper. I am the giver. I have that ability. I give. And you are the one who benefit from it. So all this is egoistic. This is conditional giving. The Bodhisattvas aims at unconditional giving. Emptiness, sunyata. There's a very high level of giving. Giving without looking for repayment. Okay, so by not attaching to the above 3 notions, bodhisattvas do not see the self that gives, nor do they see the other that receives, nor do they see any object given. Do you see the point? None of these. Emptiness. And you remember when we chant the Heart Sutras, how do we chant it? What's that line? Therefore, in emptiness, there's no form. In the Heart Sutra. Therefore, in emptiness, there's no form, nor perception, nor conception, nor volition, nor consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, or mind, because there's no attachment. No form, no sound, no smell, no touch, no taste, no object of mind. No realm of the eyes up to no realm of consciousness, because there is nothing to be obtained. There's no object to be obtained. There's no object to be attached to. A Bodhisattva should practice generosity without a mind abiding in false notions. Why? When a Bodhisattva's mind does not abide in forms during practicing charity, his merit will be inconceivable, immeasurable. That means if you do not attach, the merits will be much greater. But it does not mean that, oh, I don't attach, then my merits will be greater. Then you still attach to that notion. Okay, chapter 5 now. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen by means of his bodily form? Tathagata means the Buddha. This is the Sanskrit word. Can the Buddha be seen by means of his bodily form? If we see the Buddha in his form, we do not see the real Buddha. Because how can you see the formness from the form? If we're attached to form, we have built up in our mind the fallacious fourfold notion of ego, personality, beings, and lifespan and life. Because we don't attach to form. If you say, this is the Buddha, and oh, the Buddha is beautiful, the Buddha is gracious. Yes, of course it is, but you don't attach to form. And the Buddha said to Subhuti, everything with form is unreal. If all forms are seen as unreal, the Buddha will be perceived. This body that I have is unreal. It exists now, but it's not going to exist forever. It exists only for 100 years. It is, to a certain extent, out of my control. I cannot control it. If it gets sick, I cannot tell it to be, hey, don't get sick. No. If it's not functioning, then it's not functioning. I try to be as healthy as possible. I can't control its life. My body is not under my control, although I'm improving it. I'm trying to keep it as best as I can. But nothing is real. Everything is together because of all these causes put together. Why do we come to this world? All these causes put together that make us come to this world. Is it God that made you come to this world? No, it's you yourself. You build up those causes for being human, you come to the human realm. You create your own karma. So the Buddha wants Subhuti to look beyond his physical and spiritual body, which is free from all attributes, including the attributes of emptiness. Even emptiness, you have to empty it out. So that's what the Heart Sutra says. Form is no other than emptiness, and emptiness is no other than form. Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. Sensation, perception, conceptualization, volitions, and consciousness are also like this. So, we go on to chapter 6. The Venerable Subhuti said to the Buddha, Well-honored one, will there be living beings who, when they hear this teaching, have real faith and confidence in them? So here Subhuti was so thoughtful that he worried that for the later generations of followers, then they may not be people who believe in such Dharma. It is very subtle and abstruse. How can they possibly grasp the profound meaning that proclaims that all things are empty? How can they believe that only by perceiving emptiness of all things that they can realize their real nature? Such a teaching may be too difficult to accept, much less trying to understand it. But the Buddha replied and said, do not speak like this. Within 500 years after the Buddha has passed away, there will be those people who will observe the rules of morality and perform good deeds. These people will be able to develop faith and confidence. And who are these people? These are the Bodhisattvas. These are the people who practices the four paths of the Theravada. The Sotapanna, the Sakadagami, and Anagami, and Arahats. So, in Buddhism, there are two parts. One part is the conceivable part, and the other part is the inconceivable part. The conceivable part of it is we read all the sutras, we listen to lectures, conceivable. We can conceptualize it, we can think about it. We conceptualize that, oh, this is right, this is very logical, and this is what I should do. You can conceptualize it because there's words, there's conceptualization in your mind, but there's another part that is inconceivable beyond conceptualizations, beyond human conceptualizations. There are bodhisattvas in the world ready to help us. Are you ready? You can see them, but it does not mean that they do not exist. Because they are like us who were here before, but they attain enlightenment and they vow to come back to help. And it's because of our own karma that we cannot see them, we cannot feel that we're in touch with them. But if you're always chanting their names, or the sutra, or the mantra, you are in communion with them. That's the inconceivable part. In other words, we have to tune in the frequency of their universal grand radio station. Our mind, our radio mind, you must tune it to the bodhisattvas and the Buddhas, to the Buddha's mind. That's why we're chanting. So when you worry, when you're in depression, throw away that thought. Throw away that thought of jealousy, of envy, of depression, of disappointment, despair. That doesn't help. That's your mental defilement. Throw it away and replace it by the bodhisattva's name. Now, next, therefore, one should not grasp and hold on to the notion of Dharma, nor that of non-Dharma, nor the notion that Dharma does not exist. So, in other words, with no attachment. The Diamond Sutra tells you, don't attach to the ego. Here's the Dharma of not attaching to the ego, the way, the practice of not attaching. And even that way, you should detach it. And even the thought of detaching that is detached. In other words, you empty out bit by bit until there's nothing left, no pollutants left, no dust adhere to the mirror. We have all dust adhere to the mirror. We erased it bit by bit and bit by bit. So Tathagata always said, bhikshus, you should know that the Dharma I expound is likened to a raft. Even the Dharma should be cast aside. How much more so the non-Dharma? So that's chapter 6. Chapter 7. Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata obtained supreme enlightenment? Realized any such Dharma as an excel, perfect enlightenment? Does the Tathagata give any such teaching? Subhuti replied, and he says, as I understand the meaning of the Buddha's teaching, there is no such fixed Dharma called supreme enlightenment. And there is also no fixed Dharma the Tathagata expound. Why? Because in ultimate emptiness, how can there be anything? In ultimate emptiness, how can there be Dharma? How can there be enlightenment? In ultimate emptiness, you cannot speak about it. You cannot speak about it. It's beyond speech, beyond conceptualization. Why? It says here, the Dharma which the Tathagata expounds cannot be clung to and cannot be expressed in words. It is neither Dharma nor not Dharma. You really have to think about every one of this sentence. I'm just giving a brief review. And let's go to chapter 8. Section 7 emphasizes on realizing nothing and teach nothing. Will this kind of thinking lapse into emptiness again? Some people say, everything is empty. I don't have to do good deeds. It's empty. Now you fall into the bad deeds realm. You still have to perform good deeds, but you don't attach to it. Okay, let's go to chapter 9. Here explains the 4 levels of the paths of enlightenment of the Theravada practice. It says here, Subhuti, what do you think? Should one, a stream enterer who is entering the stream, Sotapanna, have this thought in his mind about obtaining the fruit of entering the area or the saint stream? Now, remember the 4 paths of nirvana in the Theravada school. 4 parts, 4 levels. The lowest level, the first path, is the Sotapanna level, stream enterer. After practicing for a long time, he eliminated his mental defilements. How much is being eliminated? We already talked about it. And then he got enlightenment in the first level. After he passed away, he still had to come back 7 times to the world of desires, to us, to inhere. 7 times approximately, and then he will be Arahant. Next sentence. No, well-honored one, because Sotapanna means entering the stream, but actually there is no entry into either form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or Dhamma. That is why he's called Sotapanna. He's called Sotapanna because he does not attach to the ego. If he does not attach, how can there be anywhere to enter? How can he could have entered into form, sound, smell, taste, or touch? He didn't enter into them because he's away from them. Even though it's called entering, he's not entering. So that's the first level. The second level, Subhuti, what do you think? Can a Sakritagamin, once returner, have this thought in his mind of obtaining the fruit of once returner? Sakritagamin. So Sakritagamin is the second level. Once, he's also called once returner. In other words, he practiced at such a level that after his death, he had only to come back 1 time to this world and then become Arahant, because he had eliminated so much of it, more mental defilements than the first level, the Sakritagamin, the once returner. Third, Subhuti replied, no, well-honored one. Why? Because Sakritagamin means once returner, once more to go, but actually there is neither coming nor going. That is why it's called Sakritagamin. And Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Anagamin have the thought about whether or not he can obtain the fruit of Anagamin? That's the third level. The third level is Anagamin means not returning. So it says in the next line, Subhuti replied, no, well-honored one. Why? Because Anagamin means no returner. But actually there is no such thing as no coming. That is why he's called Anagamin. So the Anagamin does not have to come back to the world of desire. He will be meditating after his death in here because of so much eliminations of the egoistic feelings, mental defilements. After he dies, he will be reborn in the 4th dhyana level of Rupadhatu. And there, in the 4th level, remember there's 4 levels in Rupadhatu. The 1st dhyana, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. When he passed away, he will be reborn there. He does not come back to the world of desires. He will be practicing in there, and then he'll become the Arahants. So these are the 4 levels. You really have to understand how these 4 levels work in detail. So you can check that up, and how every one of this level, practitioner, and every one of this path attained enlightenment. Okay, to chapter 10, Subhuti. This is why all Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas should thus develop pure, clean mind and should not abide in form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and Dhamma. They should develop a mind which does not abide in anything. We should all develop a mind that does not attach to form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and all Dhammas. Chapter 11. The Buddha told Subhuti, if a virtuous man or woman receives and holds in mind even the 4-line stanzas of this sutra, expounds it to others, his or her merit will surpass that of the alms giver. So, if you study the sutra and explains to others so that they understand emptiness, there's a lot of merits. You understand it, of course, there's a lot of merit. If you let people understand it, because then they won't attach. Then they know they have to eliminate the ego, personality, beings, and life. So here in chapter 11, the Buddha reminds us that we should tell others what it means. Chapter 12, he continued, Subhuti, wheresoever the sutra or even one of its 4-line stanzas is expounded, you should know that all devas, men, and asuras should make the offerings there as if the place was a Buddha stupa or a Buddha temple. So wherever the Diamond Sutra is, there's the Buddha, because that's the sutra of enlightenment. How much more so if someone is able to receive whole in his mind, read and recite the whole sutra. So if you really understand the profound meaning of the sutra, you'll be getting to enlightenment. Right now we're just trying to analyze the superficial meaning from the words. And if it gets down to the prajna level, your own wisdom, right now we try to explain and you try to understand emptiness by words. But words have a lot of limitation. Words can't explain everything. You really have to use your wisdom to understand emptiness. You have to know why form is unreal. Everything that has form is unreal. Everything that produces sound is unreal. That produces smell, taste, that produces a mind that you're attached to is unreal. Why is it unreal? Because it's empty. What's the definition of emptiness? Does it mean there's nothing? There's something in here, I just treat it as nothing? No. Emptiness has definition we talked about before. First of all, it's impermanent. Second, causality. All causes put together, then that thing's come true. That thing is created. It's producing, it's arising. But when all the causes disappeared, no more causes to make it come true, make it happen, make it come to pass, then it's dissolved. Everything is like this. It's form on causality. It does not have its real nature. It does not have its own control. And right now we're only analyzing from the words, from the superficial meaning. If you continue to do your meditation, your wisdom level is increasing, then you have a true understanding of emptiness, a deeper understanding of emptiness, not just from the words. Subhuti, you should know that such a person will achieve the highest and rarest Dharma. Wheresoever this sutra may be found, the Buddha and his respected disciples will be there also. So, chapter 13. Subhuti then asked the Buddha, World Honored One, what name should be given to this sutra and how should we receive and hold it in mind? Next paragraph. The Buddha told Subhuti, this sutra should be called the Diamond Prajna Paramita. You should receive and hold it under that name. In the Sanskrit language, it is also called the Vajra Chatika Prajna Paramita Sutra. Diamond is Vajra Chatika. Third paragraph. Why, Subhuti? The Prajna Paramita as expounded by the Buddha is not Prajna Paramita, but is merely so called. So it says the Prajna Paramita as expounded by the Buddha is not the real Prajna Paramita. It's only merely so called. It's just the means of it. Next. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata expound the Dharma? Subhuti said, Well Honored One, the Tathagata does not expound anything. Subhuti, what do you think? Are there many particles or dust in the universe? Now, why does Subhuti said the Tathagata does not expound anything? Well, he explains something. How come it does not expound anything? Because what is being expounded is based on causality. It comes together based on causality. Subhuti replied, Many, Well Honored One. Subhuti the Tathagata said these particles of dust are not real, but are merely called the particle of dust. The Tathagata says the universe is not real, but it is merely called the universe. Why is it not real? I already explained it to you. It's causality. It's not real. Not real does not mean it does not exist. It exists on causality. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be perceived by means of his 32 physical characteristics? No, well-honored one. The Tathagata cannot be perceived by them. Why? Because the Tathagata says they are not real, but are merely called the 32 physical characteristics. The Buddha's Nirmanakaya, the body of transformation, has 32 meritorious features and 80 minor characteristics. But these are unreal too, because they form on causality because of enlightenment, because of the merits accrue. They're not real. Don't attach them to as real. So you don't perceive the Buddha as if that's the Buddha. Yes, those are the meritorious features, but they are on causality. They form on causality only. Don't attach to them. Next paragraph. Subhuti, if on the other hand, a virtuous man or woman in giving alms sacrifices as many lives as there are sand grains in the Ganges, and on the other hand, someone receives and holds in mind even the 4-line stanzas of this sutra and expounds it to others, the merit of the latter will be greater. That means explaining the meaning of this so that people do not attach, so that people become not egoistic, getting onto the path of enlightenment. The merits so obtained will be much more than giving out treasures as many as the sands of the Ganges River. So, I finished the 13 brief review, and in chapter 9, we have the 4 concepts of the 4 paths of the Theravada practice. And in the first path, the lowest level, it's the Sotapanna level. And then there is the Sakritagamin, and that is the Anagamin, and that is the Arahats. And how do they practice step by step until they reach the Arahats? It's the elimination of the ego, the personality, beings, and life. Or, to put it simply, elimination of all mental afflictions. Remember, we have 2 classifications of mental defilements or mental afflictions. The one category is the conceptually arising afflictions. The other category is the fundamentally innate afflictions. Conceptually arising afflictions arises, most of them arises in this life. For example, self-viewed, extreme view, attachment to view of rigid attachment to precepts, evil view, greediness, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and doubt. All these we arise because of our background, because of what we learn. Self-view, we have a self. This is mine, that is yours. A self-view. Extreme view, attachment to views. All this is conceptually arising. The conceptually arising afflictions, if you're in the first level, the Sotapanna level, you practice meditation, you practice in your daily lives to eliminate all this self-view, extreme view, attachment to view, and you become successful in it. You eliminate all these conceptually arising afflictions in your mind. No more of these. In other words, a self-view will not arise in you. Extreme view, attachment to view, or greediness would not arise in you. Hatred, no more hatred, no more ignorance, no more arrogance. Nothing of these arise in your mind. Forever subside. These conceptually arising afflictions forever subside, then you become the Sotapanna. But you still have the fundamentally innate afflictions, the afflictions that have been brought forward from previous lives, which is so deep-rooted that we cannot eliminate them in the Sotapanna level. But you already have eliminated the conceptually arising afflictions. So that's the first level. So you still have to come back to the world to practice. When we passed away, we still have to come back approximately 7 times. Remember the world, we have 3 levels. The first is world of desires, which we're living in now. And the higher level is world without desires, but still with form. We call it the Rupa Dhatu. In there's only happiness, no suffering. But beings there still die. They still have form. In other words, they still have body. They still have form, sound. And in another third level is Arupa Dhatu. No more, of course, no more desires. Even in the second level, in Rupa Dhatu, no more desire. Okay, time is up. And if you have any question, you can write on a piece of paper and at lunchtime, and we can answer some questions regarding Buddhism.